Hi. So here I'm just going to be introducing the concepts of variables. We're going to talk about strings, we're going to talk about numbers. You should be able to see my computer screen, and what I'm going to do is within FIJI that I've just opened, I'm going to go to the edit menu, the file menu, select a new text window. This opens up the macro editor, and first thing I'm going to do is check that I'm running the ImageJ macro language. There are several different languages that you can run in ImageJ, but I'm only talking about the ImageJ macro language. It's got a check next to it, so I'm good. Okay, we've got two types of variables that we can use in image. We've got multiple different types of variables that we can use in ImageJ. The only ones I'm going to talk about in this video are strings and numbers. So strings are strings of characters, which is to say just a word. So this is a string. And you can see that it is contained within these double quotes. And it's also highlighted in pink. Different colors in the ImageJ macro language mean different things when you're using the macro editor. So pink means a string. Purple means a number. Black means a variable, and yellow means a command. So our first type of variable is a string, and this is just a word. Okay. Numbers, also simple. They're just numbers. They can be integers. They can be decimals, as you like, basically. ImageJ is a pretty straightforward language. You don't have to declare the type of variable that something is going to be when you declare the variable. The simplest thing you can do is just type, I'll make a completely new line of text, and I'll type the name of a variable, in this case string, and set it equal to, this is a string. And when I finish that line, I have to put a semicolon at the end of it. That semicolon tells the macro interpreter to stop interpreting that line of code. It says this line is over, move to the next line. I'm going to make a number. So now we've got two variables called string and number. When you name a variable, give it an appropriate name for what it is you're trying to do. So for example, the variable here called string, it's a string. That's what I want to put in there. If I was doing like a biology question and I wanted to figure out, I wanted to use this variable to store the name of a protein, I could call the variable protein name. Or the number of the experiment that I've done, I could call it rep count, as in repetition count. When you are making your variable names, you can use two different forms of typing, or you can as long as you don't use spaces, you're good, because spaces delineate two separate words. So if I have a variable called musk rat, nothing, right? That's two different variables called musk and rat. But if I have a variable called muskrat, that's one variable. And you can see that I've made it more legible by capitalizing that R. I could also have one called musk underscore rat. And that would separate. It would make it legible by separating the kind of sub clauses of the variable name with an underscore. Let's say I want to use a variable to store the name of a protein. I'm going to start by calling it protein name, set it equal to, and then give it the name of the protein that I'm working with. I need to put a semicolon at the end, and then I'm going to leave a comment. So comments are extremely useful, and I'm going to use these throughout the videos. These are basically little notes that you leave for yourself. They're not interpreted by the macro language, so they are not they're not useful code in that they don't tell the computer to do something. They're useful code in that they tell you to do something. So here I'm going to say protein, spell correctly, protein name to be changed per experiment. Rep count equals 1. as of 2026 07/11, which is when I am recording this. It's actually the 13th. It's the 13th. Okay. So now I've got two variables, and I'm using those two variables to store. One is storing a string, one is storing a number. How do I find out what's in them? Easiest way is honestly using the print command. So you see I type print. Print is a command, and so it comes up as yellow. I then have to put the parameters for that command in within parentheses. So now I'm putting in parentheses protein name. Close the parentheses. Finish with a semicolon. And then I can hit the run function, and what I'm going to produce is a log window, which is a log window is kind of where the text output of ImageJ goes. And so that log window is going to pop up, and the value of the protein name variable is going to get put into that window. And there it is. It's a nilin. Hey, what a surprise. If I did the same thing with rep count, you can imagine what's going to happen. Hit run, the value is going to be 1. Okay, what happens if I put... It's important to differentiate between strings and... between strings and variables. So if I put rep count in double quotes, in quote marks, when I hit run, what's going to happen? Okay, rep count, because it's in double quotes, rep count is no longer a variable, it is a string. And so when I hit run, I'm going to see the word rep count come up, because that's what I asked the print command to do. I asked the print command to output the string rep count, as opposed to the variable rep count. If I delete those quotation marks, rep count, or rather the input into the print command goes from being the string rep count, it changes to being the variable rep count, which contains a number, which is 1. So this is super useful for us. What if I wanted to print a nilin? And just here I'm going to print the variable a nilin. Okay, this is our first macro error. We have an undefined variable in line 7. And it highlights the line of code where everything failed, and it puts in triangular brackets a nilin, because that's where the code failed. If I hit the show debug window, it will tell me the currently existing variables in the program. It's going to tell me the value of string, number, protein name, and rep count. Those are the 4 variables that I've defined so far in this code. And then it shows me the error. So the reason that this has come up is because a nilin, the variable, does not exist. There is a variable called protein name which contains the string value anilin, but anilin itself is not a variable. So to unerror this code, we would have to do one of two things. We could do several things, obviously, but if we wanted to get the word anilin printed in our log window, we would change this back to protein name. That's the first option for us. Easy. That's what we did before. The other thing that I could do is return this to being the anilin variable and change make a new variable called anilin. And I can give that the value of another variable. So I'm going to give it the value of protein name. So when I hit run now, what I'll see is the word anilin is going to show up in the log window, assuming that I've spelled everything correctly, which I have. And there we go. We can see anilin appears as the second line of the log window. One quick note, capitalization, super important. You know, if we're going to use what I'm calling camel case here, it's not just me that calls it camel case. I'm not going to pretend that I've invented that, but when we're using camel case, it's really important that you capitalize everything correctly. The capital N character is different from the lowercase n character. These are two separate characters as far as the program is concerned. And so if I ask the thing to print protein name with all lowercase and no capital N in there, I get the same error as I did before when I had a nil in here. It's looking for a variable that doesn't exist. Okay, that's introduced us to variables, strings and numbers. We do a lot of commands in ImageJ using strings. And so in the next video, I'm going to talk about string manipulation, concatenation, substrings, ways to access basically all of the commands and functions that you would want to use in ImageJ. See you then.